thank you for being my guest on this interview. In these videos, we're talking about science fiction in general, but now I want to talk about the Europe side of science fiction. My first question will be about, I think most of the people are interested how famous is science fiction genre in Europe in general.
I'm very happy to participate and give my contribution to what I call the spreading of biodiversity of the future, because we're running the risk of being considered as an endangered species, writing and in a non-English language, even though now we are using language as a bridge tool to understand each other. We shouldn't forget that we all come from different languages and different culture and different histories and different traditions. So to answer your question, I think that science fiction is more spread than we think. Of course, we have a problem when it comes to commercial, to marketing, when it comes to big numbers and big industry investing in national science fiction. But when it comes to the quality of the stories, the themes, the relevance or the style, European science fiction is as good as any other science fiction written everywhere in the world. And I can tell that because I have published more than 160 stories from more than 25 countries, translating from more than 10 languages. So I can fairly say that science fiction doesn't belong to any country. It doesn't belong to any culture. That is not that the book and the science are not things that go together well, you know? So it's a strange thing. From my point of view, it is just related to how the institution, schools, university, all the general society has a view on technology. It's just a matter of if you, and when I say technology, I don't mean mathematics or astrophysics or chemistry, okay? I mean a scientific approach to reality, being curious, wanting to ask questions. I mean that from A follow B and maybe could be C. Just a way of having your thoughts in a logic way, in a plausible way, something that doesn't have to be scientifically perfect, but it could be resemble some kind of reality, of truth. So depending on how the countries approach this element, you have more or less science fiction fandom, science fiction groups, science fiction writers, because in some countries, of course, it's barely impossible to write science fiction, as you said, but that comes because of the surrounding.
You mentioned that in some countries science fiction are doing better than in others, but what do you think are the reasons for that? For example, why one country has so many science fiction writers and others have not?
Early 20s and 30s, when the economy in the US was booming, we had World War I. When the economy was still booming in the 40s and 50s in the US, we had World War II, and it was here in Europe. It wasn't on the US soil, it wasn't on the US territory. So they have enjoyed a very long period of peace on their country and positive approach to progress, a positive approach towards the future. The future was bright until the war of Korea, until the war of Vietnam in the US. So American science fiction embraced this golden age. We will go and conquer the world. We will go to the other worlds. We will colonize the universe. We will export capitalism and the American dream to the universe, until Philip K. Dick said, maybe there is a problem with this colonization. Maybe we've been colonizing our own minds with the idea of capitalism. Maybe the aliens is not outside, but it's inside of us. Maybe the way we produce materialism, consumerism, is turning us into zombies. So then came the new wave in the US. And now they have a commercial and a literary science fiction going together. But the commercial part is so shiny and the billboard is so big, and that it covers everything else. So you are blinded by this shiny light of commercial science fiction that you don't see anything. On the other side, in Europe, of course, with the First World War and the Second World War, we had to face very big dilemmas. What's the sense of this progress if it just creates war, more incredible weapons? We cannot find peace in our hearts. We cannot find peace in our minds. Why we always have to fight with each other? So we turn into philosophical, more, I think, way to understand the nature of man, the problems of ideology, of politics. So even though we copied in a way the more entertaining science fiction of the US, that's not our science fiction. Our science fiction is a science fiction that dates back to the fantastic tropes of the Enlightenment, with Voltaire, with Don Quixote, Cervantes.
So you think that political climate can be that influential and can affect that much on science fiction writing?
Well, I do believe that the best science fiction is political science fiction. There is no other way to put it for me. And I do think that science fiction is deeply political.
Can we say that good science fiction always is inspired by current events, real events which are happening around the writer?
Yes, in a way, yes, because through the filter of the metaphor, the allegory of the future, normally the writer talks about his own time. Think about 1984, think about Brave New World, think about the Man in the High Castle, think about The New Romancer, think about Snow Crash, all these, or Dune, all these incredible books, they all are a mirror of the time when they were written. So you have the big question of the environment in Dune. Can we really be self-sustainable, even in a desert world like Dune? Or how is capitalism affecting the life of the people that are left out from the economic process in New Romancer, for example? So in a way, the best science fiction books are always a reflection of the political milieu, the political environment where they were written. That's my point of view.
So we see that corona pandemic had that big damage on world economy, and we have these results of pandemics now, and we see that it will take quite a long time to pick up and recover from this loss, I think. And the question is, what we see from science. Do science has an equivalent answer to this economical crisis, or is science ready now to, for example, help us avoid any other virus, for example, to appear and destroy us any other way?
Well, say that we have lived through many pandemics before this one. We just had one 100 years ago, and we had many others. I remember, I mean, not personally, but the Black Plague, for example, and being from Rome and being from Italian culture, I can, quote, or I studied all the many different pandemics, and I can say that maybe the economy will be smashed or destroyed, but civilization will survive. So what we have to understand is maybe take this pandemic as a way of discontinuity and try to understand what we did wrong, because maybe going back to normal is not the answer, because the normal was really what causes many of these problems, because the spreading of the coronavirus is due to the kind of globalization that allowed the virus to spread so fast across the world. So of course, I'm not calling for closing of the airports and these kind of things, but let me tell you that there is an emerging genre in science fiction, which is called solar punk, which tries to address the issues of this new era. We have lived through the time of cyberpunk from the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, where all the issues were related to capitalism, multinationals, economy, internet, implants, cybersecurity, and all these things. But that time is over. That is now the reality. We live in a cyberpunk world. If you remember Blade Runner, the beginning, it says Los Angeles, 2019. So it was already 1 year ago. So we are already in that. If you see the pictures of the fires on the west coast of the US, you will see absolutely striking resemblance with the shooting of Blade Runner 2049. So what is expected from science fiction writers, and what is expected from the next 30 or 40 years? Well, we have a very big issue called Anthropocene, which is the geological age caused by human behavior. All the things we produce, all the things we ship, all the things we waste, all the resources we extract from nature without giving anything back is asking for a payback. So the way we produce our goods and the way we distribute it is not sustainable. So solar punk tries to say we have to find an exit strategy to this kind of capitalocene. It's capitalism that has imposed this kind of very high price to the environment. And solar punk tries to say we have to, fight this through politics and through some smart technologies which are not impacting the environment so deeply. So stop using the oil or gas, use the sun, the wind, use sustainable resources. Other thing is, for example, using the circular economy. I don't have to ship you the grocery from Brazil to Italy to have bananas. You can grow them. The same thing happens for how we build a car. We should not build a car one place in China, one part in Denmark, and one part in Portugal, and one part in Brazil. We can 3D print them in place and ship the formula of this stuff. So the way of, I don't see any new technology. Of course, there could be something interesting with biotechnology and nanotechnology, but I see, and what I hope for is a change in the way we use the technology, because now we have internet that can take us together and make us share a better knowledge, just like we are doing now. And connecting all the dots, we can create a better future.
People say that in the future, there will be possible to provoke or result some specific feelings into us. For example, the pleasure of reading book can be provoked without reading a book. So what do you think? Will we have the future without books and literature? Just having some tools which could be able to provoke some feelings into us.
Well, I'm not an orthodox of the writing form. Let's say that I always consider the long period of time. So if you I come from Italy, so before the Romans, we even had other civilizations, the Etruscan, for example, that they hardly used the written word. But something that defines us as humans is telling stories. So the storytelling, whether it's oral, whether it's spoken, whether we sit around the fire and tell us each other stories in the forms of legends and myth, like it all started, or we are writing on paper, or we are drawing comic, or we are making animation, or we are, I don't know, injecting the story and the characters directly in our brains, I don't mind, as long as we can communicate meaningful stories that tell us where we are in this place, in this time, in our universe, and in relationship with the other people. So what I care mostly is growing the awareness of the people in relationship with their distance towards happiness. Because basically we tell our stories to lower our anxiety, our fears, to feel more secure, to feel happier. And that will not change if we use piece of paper or an audiobook or a comic.
Do you believe in such thing as collective consciousness, which can help us, some specific species, to come together and make a clever global decision in order to survive and save their nature, their species?
I don't know. This is a difficult question. I hope there is sometimes, yes, I can say that we do have this collective consciousness. For example, the awareness of the environment, something that in the Middle Ages was, well, it's strange because it depends where you look. You cannot generalize so much. I mean, you have parts of the world where man thought he was at the center of the universe, and parts of the world like China where they thought they were not at the center of the universe. They were just a part of the universe and not the only species on top of the evolution, for example. So this idea of the environment changed, for example, speaking about collective ideas, right? So it goes in a way up and down, but I do think that there is a way of being influenced, but it's not easy. What changed the thing is the speed at which we are now affecting each other, because internet is really changing the picture, because the speed has an impact. One thing is to talk to one person and then wait for the other to spread that story to another person. One thing is to put it online and see read by thousands of people in a very short amount of time. So technology in this way is non-neutral. Technology plays a role. So depending on that technology, you can really have an impact. Think about the elections in the US, right? it's really strange when you think how much the people can be affected by a very simple tweet, in good or bad. This is creating waves of awareness. But I think there is also a kind of polarization in these things. More and more people even are prepared to deny, to negate the reality of things. They don't care. So it's complicated. I don't know if I answer correctly because it's difficult.
It was really nice to have you on this interview. I wish you all the best in everything what you're doing for science fiction genre in Europe. It's a pretty big job what you're doing, and I want you to make all your plans come true very soon. Wish you all the best.